Hello, I want to do a video today about the 12 things that I believe Thrive Architect can do that nobody or no other page builder can do. Of course, Thrive Architect is probably my favorite page builder tool for WordPress, of course. And I plan to do a series of videos about all the different page builder. I've been planning that for months, just didn't have the time to do that now, where I will review each of them one by one more thoroughly. And of course, there are a lot of things that Thrive Architect can do that some page builder can do, but not all of them. So it's not the purpose of that video today. So today it's really 12 things that I know for now that only Thrive Architect can do. Now, of course, by the time that you watch this video, it might have changed. For example, I know that DV is updating their software almost every week. So by the time you watch that, maybe some of them will have copied what Thrive Architect has done. But at the right time, at the current time, it's not the case. Another thing, of course, not all of those features are as essential to everybody. So of course some of them you will say that it's completely useless, or maybe if you're different than me, if you're more a designer, I'm more a developer, you will say that this could be bad for you in the sense that you can make mistake with that feature or things like that. So I don't know, but I just want to show you 12 different things that Thrive Architect can do, and why at the same time it's my favorite tool, because none other can do what this tool can do. So let's go with the first one. And the first one, as you can see by the way here, I'm using one of the landing page that I did for another series, but I'm going to show you things one by one. So the first thing is to be able to view and edit the HTML code behind the page. So if I click here, you will see that we can edit the HTML. And if I click on that, it will show me all the code behind. I don't see the header and footer and so on. It's just the page itself, the inline page. But you can see all the divs, all the different elements that you have there. And you can also edit that and click that little checkbox to simply save it. So of course, not everybody will need that, but that could be useful if you need to add some JavaScript sometime. But mostly, for example, I used it once in the beginning of Thrive Architect. There was something that I have added at some point and that I deleted later on, and for any reason it was not completely deleted. It was still making a space there. So I was able to come here and simply, sorry, I'm gonna close that, and simply delete that from the code and of course get rid of it. So it's more of a backup in case of emergency or something like that, but still this is something that is completely unique to Thrive Architect. I didn't try to put any CSS here, though I believe that it will work. So it's more for HTML and maybe some JavaScript. I'm gonna close that, and let's go with the second feature. So the second feature, it's not completely unique to Thrive Architect, I must say so. But the only other builder that I know of that can do the exact same thing is Oxygen, but Oxygen does it differently. So that's why I still put it in the unique feature, and that's the ability to edit the CSS code for the entire page. So as you can see here, we have the custom CSS just below the other one, where I can come here and manually type any CSS that I want. So target class ID or tags, and manually put everything. So if you know CSS, you don't necessarily need to have an external plugin or things like that, or go to the theme or customizer to be able to add your own CSS. Now, some other tools like Elementor, for example, you can always target an element, put an ID or class on it, and then go on that element and put some CSS. But this is directly on the element itself. Here it's global for the entire page. So again, this is something that I think is unique. And again, of course, I really encourage you, if you know a feature in your favorite page builder that is similar to that, just put it in the comment below. No problem with that. Okay. third element, it's remove the theme CSS. So if I go in my template setup, and this one along with some others will only work if you use a landing page. By the way, if you just create the internal page, you might not have access to 100% of those features. For example, the header and footer for now are just for landing pages, okay? Though they are working on putting that available for any page. So if I click on that landing page setting here, in my landing page option, you see here that I have the remove theme CSS option that is checked right now. And what this does is, no matter which theme that you are using, this theme is already loading some CSS. And of course, when you create a landing page, like it's my case here, I don't use any of that. I create my own CSS, I create my own styles on elements and so on. And if you want to know how I've built this page, there's another video in the other series where I build that landing page, and you will see that I don't need any of the theme CSS. So no matter which theme that I'm using. The problem is that my page still loads this CSS for nothing, the theme CSS. So by using that little checkbox here, it strips all the CSS that the theme will create or load, and of course makes the page then smaller. So that's a feature that is unique to Thrive Architect. I hope that every page builder will have that at some point, but for now only Thrive Architect has that. Next one, this is what we will call the breadcrumbs. So for example, if I click on any element in my page, you will see that here at the top I have what we would call breadcrumbs. So it shows me that I'm currently have my paragraph selected, and that it is inside the content box, which is inside the background section, which is inside the landing page itself. So I can easily click on any of them to move from one to the other, and of course I will have my properties there to be able to modify that specific element. So if you have nested elements, not that easy to select the right thing, it's always easy to come here and to do so. That will be useful, for example, if you are working with columns here. So I have my content box selected, but I want to select that column. I can do that right there. And if I want to select all the columns, there's a shortcut key, I think, when you shift click, or I don't remember the exact key that we need to use to do that. Yeah, it seems that it's a shift key where you can select the parent element, but honestly it's way more easier to simply come here and click on that. That will select all the columns, in other words the row in this particular case. So breadcrumbs, really interesting, not to know only the elements that are nested, but of course to select them as well. Next element of, I was hesitant a little bit to put that one there because of course every page builder will allow you to edit the text with more or less flexibility capabilities, but the way that Thrive Architect will handle text, especially on landing pages, is really unique. Of course, any text that I select here, I can always come to the typography section and edit the text. This is not what I'm referring to. Again, it's for landing pages, but here's how it will allow us to edit the entire text for the entire page just by clicking here on the landing page settings. Sorry. And you have the landing page text options here. I'm going to click on edit page text, and then again, if you have seen the video previously, you saw how that is done. Sorry. So here I have all text selected by default. So that means that the modifications that we make here about shadow or typography will be for every element in the page, every text element. So H1, paragraph, links, and so on will all be targeted at the same time. So I don't need to go into each and every element and specify, for example, that I want to have the railway typeface, or if I wanted to change the height or something like that. Okay, so that's really, really useful. Then we can select one element by clicking on it. So for example, here it's white on white, that's why you don't see it, but this is how I would target the H1 element, the H2 element, and so on, and of course make modifications for the entire page in one spot instead of doing that for each and every element that I use. But if I want to target all my headings at the same time, again, I can use the breadcrumbs here and select all my headings. So for example, in this particular case, all my headings had capital letters. So it was way easier to come here and select uppercase than to have to do that for each and every level of H titles. If, of course, if there's something that is different for a specific heading, like for example here, my heading 1 was bigger and of course was white, then we click simply on it and we make the modifications there. Same thing for H2. So every time that I use an H2 now in my page, it will be styled like that. That doesn't prevent me from coming back, by the way, selecting one H2 and changing properties. You will see that in the video. For example, I changed the color of the text or things like that. No problem with that. But by default, it will look like this. Then we have the regular text, paragraph, 16 in this case. The look of the hyperlink, and you have the bold text, by the way, here as well. The look of hyperlink and the look of plain text if you insert plain text, which is no HTML tags at all, just like pre-formatted text in a certain way. So all of those can be edited individually or by group, or all the text at the same time, which is really a big time saver. And by the way, you can have, as you can see, a different look for desktop, tablets, and mobile. So let's say, for example, I wanted to have my H1 here on 36 pixel, but I believe that on mobile it's too big. I can come here and just change that for mobiles, and it will only be changed for mobiles, not for every screen sizes. So that's really great. You can see moving from 36 to 24. So that's another feature that is unique to Thrive Architect. The next one is more an element, and this is called the content box. So when you are here, you can see that you have a content box that you can drag and drop. Let's say I'm going to drag it over here. And this is probably in the HTML behind it, just a simple div, but you have so much control over that in Thrive Architect. I didn't find that anywhere. For example, every other page builder here, I needed to do columns. I needed to have 2 columns and 1 empty column here. And of course, columns, the problem with that sometimes is when you resize the screen size, it doesn't necessarily act the way that you want. And in this particular case, where I have an image, the image of the woman here, and I want my text to float around it, would be pretty hard with some screen resolution if I would do that with columns. So now that particular content box that I created here, I can specify a maximum width, as you can see, and by changing that, it will of course make the content smaller or bigger. So for example, by default it will be 100%, but as you can see now, since I don't want my text to be on top of that image, I can very easily just say that you want to have a maximum width here to go directly with the size that you need. Okay, pretty easy. And of course here I've set some left and top padding so that we have a space like that to make it move. I could change its position as well if I wanted to instead. And what is pretty cool with that, as I said, is that when you go to a different screen size, as you can see here, instead of 560 something, I think, now I have 396 for the width of that content. And again, I could put it a little bit lower, maybe like that. So we can pretty easily change that for each screen size. A lot easier than to have to work with columns, empty columns. And now I'll go back to 371, or simply I could say here 100% at mobile view, and so on. So really easy to work with, really easy. If you need to duplicate elements, you will have maybe seen that if you've seen the other video. Let me go back to desktop view. For example, here, unfortunately, Thrive Architect doesn't allow me, it allows me to duplicate an element, but not necessarily a group of element. But by putting that into a content box, then I can duplicate that content box, and it will duplicate everything inside of it so that I can move it or so on. Okay, so really an easy way to work with things. It might take a couple of minutes to get a hang of it, But once you're done, you'll see that it's way more powerful than just using always rows and columns to make your layout. That will allow you to do some pretty advanced thing like we have here with the element, but I'm going to come back to that later on. Next element that is unique to Thrive Architect is when we work with background images or background colors and so on, any background, we have layers. Okay, so layers, if you use to Photoshop or any other similar tool, design tool, you know that you have kind of a transparency that you can put one on top of the other, and that's exactly what we can do here. So let's say, for example, here I have an image, and if you follow that video on mobile, I have the same image, but since I have the text on top of the image, I don't really have the choice here. It will be too small if I wanted to put it on the side. So this way I add a solid color on top of it to add an overlay color. Of course, other builder would allow you to have an overlay color. Some will, some won't, but still you have a lot more control here. If I want to add more than one color or things like that, it is possible. And of course, Thrive Architect is so flexible with mobile and tablet view. So this is really the best one here. But let's say if I wanted to use a gradient, by the way, still possible to do that, and so on. So really up to you. This one is, I should lower down the opacity, but you can see how it works. So really useful if you want to be able to add elements and you want to get rid of it, simply just click on the X button like that, and that's really easy to do. Now, what does also mean, I don't have any example here at end, but what it also means is that it's the only builder that takes full advantage of CSS3's property that allows us to have more than one background color. So for example, you want to have a little triangle, a little flower here on the top right, and top left, sorry, another one on the top right, and each corner have a different image. All the page builder will only allow you to have one image, so you will have to create one big image, let's say in Photoshop, and have it resized for different screen size. Pretty complicated. With something like, with a tool like Thrive Architect, you will be able to create 4 little different images and simply come here. Let's say I want to go back to my desktop view, and simply here add as many images as you need. So let's say if I want to put the logo here on the top left, okay, so whoops, stretch, I'm going to set it back to default, and then I want to have another one on the top right here. So let's say, of course, makes no sense right now, agree with me, but just to see how it works. And that would be really easy to do with a tool like Thrive Architect. Don't know any other tool that will allow me to do something like that without having to enter CSS or other type of code. So let's do the last one here, just like that. Of course, if you don't want to see it that big, you can just put that to default. We'll start. Not centered, but I'm going to put it on the lower right. And as you can see now, we have all these images. If I want to, I can get rid of them on mobile. Let's say here on mobile, they're not there, so I can add them if I wanted to, and so on, or get rid of them, and so on. So pretty advanced stuff here that only Thrive Architect, again, allows me to do. The next element is the absolute positioning. So what is absolute positioning? Absolute positioning allows you to, as it says, position something absolutely. In other words, give it a X and Y coordinate that it will not change, no matter the screen size or no matter if you scroll if you want to, and so on. So this is more an advanced topic for CSS users, more advanced CSS users, but you will understand how it works. Let me try to show you one example here. I have one on another, well, let me open another page. I'm just gonna pause the video while I'll. All right, so here's my example. that I did last year. I had this page to do in both French and English. At start, it was only in French. No, sorry, that was a bilingual page. But then they decided to change that and to say that one page will be in French and one in English instead of having the two languages like in some other places. Sorry. So we needed to add that little French and English thing here that was not supposed to at the beginning. Okay, so I needed to add it there and place it somewhere. So I needed to put that in the top of that little box here, and that would have been hard to do with some other page builder. I would have needed to change the layout here and so on, columns and so on. So not necessarily that easy. Now with Thrive Architect, all I can do is come here in the advanced layout and position advanced section, and I can say that it is absolutely positioned, and that will remove it from the flow and it will put it on the top here. It's inside my content box, by the way, so that's why it's in the top of the content box, not of the page. But then I can click edit position and I can decide whether it's on top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right, and I can also decide to put a position. So let's say in my case I wanted to put on the top, so I can decide to put a negative value here. From memory it's what's minus 35, as you can see, just to have it above the element, and from I think it was 35 like that. So it's pretty easy to place something absolutely like that. And of course, if I have put it outside the content box, I could put it relative to the rest of the page. Let's say, for example, on the top right there. And I can still do that, by the way, just by using a big value. Let's say something like minus, I don't know, 150 will not be enough, 350. And as you can see, that's pretty near the top of the page now. So I can, even though, of course, I would probably not put it inside that content box here, but it's still possible to come and place it where I want. And of course, after that, I can change those values for different screen sizes if I needed to. Okay, so as you can see here, it is way too high, so I need to change the position here on the mobile view. So minus 200, let's say, instead. No, 150. Something like that. And from the right, maybe 10 pixels from the right. And here we go. So we can easily absolutely position things, something that cannot be done with other page builders. Now back to my previous example for the next element. Close to absolutely position is the float possibility. So again, if I come here, you see that I have my little image here, and usually if we don't use float, it will look something like this. So one element after the other, and of course if I want to have them side by side, I will need to put columns, but I already have columns, so I will have to create nested columns, nested rows, and so on. Pretty strange to do. Now what I can do here in Thrive Architect without having to input some manual CSS, I can select my image, I can come in my layout and positioning and specify an alignment, because I will have to decide whether I want it to float to the left or to the right, and come in my advanced section here and simply check float. And as you can see now, float is simply a more advanced CSS feature that says that the content will flow to its right. So here I could put a little bit of a space here, let's say a 10. Oops, sorry, not the right place. To push my content a little bit. And as you can see, when it flows to the left, that means that it goes to the left and all the rest of the content will be on its right and under if we have more lines. And if we float on the right, of course, it will be the opposite. And again, that could be done for many screen sizes. So that's what I did for this one. That's what I did for this paragraph here, because this is not an image, this is real text. So I did the same thing here. And if we take a look at my Siri on that landing page, you're going to see how more complicated it was to do with other page builder. I had to manually enter text, enter CSS to do that, or simply use columns or things like that. So pretty easy to do with Thrive Architect. Number 10, the ease of use for tablet and mobiles. Of course, this point is less specific to Thrive Architect in the sense that many others like Elementor are almost as easy to use in tablet when you want to target a tablet or mobile. But the reason it's unique is that because everything can be editable in Thrive Architect. Let's say, for example, I select this text here. In other tools like Elementor, I can come and change the font size for a specific screen size. But from memory, I cannot come and change, for example, the font family, or I cannot come and change the font color for a specific screen size. While with Thrive Architect, I can modify absolutely everything. So let's say, for example, let's do that. I want to have a smaller text on the tablet view, let's say, and I want it to be, let's say, I don't know, a different color. Of course, that will be strange in this particular case, but just for you to understand the difference. So now it's golden, and when we are on desktop, it's still white. And of course, on mobile, now it will take the same as the tablet by default, but if I want to, again, I can change that to something else. So this is the power of Thrive Architect. Absolutely everything that you change there, you change it the exact same way as you would in the desktop view, but every element can be changed just like you would do in any other screen size, and it will be only specific to that screen size and below. So that's why if you do that for tablet, by default, mobile will inherit that as well. If you want to change that for mobile as well, you can just do so. Another feature that is pretty cool with Thrive Architect is the fact that we can hide element and it will not be in the view when we develop. For example, let me be more specific. If I come here and I say in the responsive section that I don't want that to show on tablet, let's say, okay, so desktop and mobile only. So when I switch to tablet, as you can see, it's actually gone. Many page builders, since they want us to be able to select that element again, will still show it, and that will be a pain in the to be able to change that again, or to be able to actually see the exact view that it will have on the actual device. Okay, of course I would need to come here to select it and modify it again if I wanted to, but after that I can always go back there. And one of the things, and this is what I wanted to show you, is that Thrive Architect gives us the choice. So this is how it will look like in fact, but I have that little checkbox here that allows me to show hidden element. And you have a green border around it to specify that it's something that is hidden. So this way, if I need to select it, if I need to modify something, I can always show the hidden element, modify it if I want to, and hide it again. So really it gives you the option, while most of the other page builder will simply leave it there or simply hide it and don't give you the choice. All right, so let me go back there. And the last thing that I want to show you is a feature that Thrive, it's not the Thrive builder particularly, but let me show that to you. So this is called the Thrive Lightbox. So I'm gonna leave it like that. I'm gonna save my page, let's say. I'm gonna leave it like that, and I'm gonna come here and Thrive Lightboxes. I don't have any right now, but I can create another pop-up, let's say, okay, I'm gonna publish that, and I'm gonna use Thrive Architect to edit that. And let's say I want to have a pop-up, can be anything, can be some text, can be Sorry. Okay, so here we go. If I go back there and I want to have a page event, I can be an exit intent or can be after a few specific amount of time. So let's say I'm going to use a timer. In this particular case, let's say 10 seconds. So after 10 seconds, something will happen. So I'm going to use my Thrive Lightbox. We have pop-up that we already created, or I could have created from here. Well, we can use an animation. Let's say zoom animation and click save. And we can have more than one event. So in this case, it's okay. I'm going to save and I'm going to preview that page here. So after 10 seconds, my pop-up will appear. Don't know how long yet. Looks like I have a little problem here. Let me just check what I've done wrong. Alright, so I don't know if I did something wrong while I was talking, but I recreated it and it works fine. I just changed the length to 2 seconds instead. So let's try that again. And here we go. So now we have our Thrive pop-up or lending Lightbox that appears where we can do things inside of it. So again, you have other tools, of course, that can do that, but for Page Builder, I believe that it's the only one. So I hope that you like that video. Of course, you can put all your comments down below. If you like the video, put a thumbs up. You can subscribe to my channel, of course, and be notified if there's something else. If there are other features of Thrive Architect that I passed, of course, I'm really talking about something that is unique here. You can, of course, put that in comment as well. And hopefully I will be able to do some other videos on other page builders as well to do something like that. But I really encourage you, if you're more advanced user maybe, to take a look at Thrive Architect. It is less known, of course, than Elementor, for example, because Elementor started free. But this is a really good tool. It's pretty cheap, to be honest. It starts at, I think, something like $49, but it's a lifetime subscription. Okay. So it's not really more expensive than any other page builder if you use the pro version anyway. If you want that for a 15 license, I think it's $147 or something like that. But again, it's lifetime, not every year like another tool like Elementor, for example. So take the time to look at that, compare it with other tools, and I'm pretty sure you will like it as I do. So thank you. Have a good day.